This is Jim from Portage M&A Advisory, and you're listening to the Selling Successfully podcast, the show that simplifies selling your business for those thinking about moving into the next chapter of life. If you like what you hear, please follow or subscribe to find us easily and listen again. We're here when you need us. Hi, and welcome to the Portage podcast. Really excited today. We've got Nick Olsen with us, who's a managing director of CIA, Cornerstone International Alliance. Nick, thanks for joining us.
Jim, thanks for having me. Appreciate the opportunity to be on your show. Excited about our conversation here today.
You know what? This is a topic I think that obviously is very relevant for me and other members in the CIA network. And today I'm excited to share a little bit about the Global Buyer Network, how we as Portage leveraged it and what you're seeing. Also, the data intelligence that gets shared across the group, and then also partner synergies and how firms are now working together, right? Some on the sell side, some on the buy side. So really excited to dive into this. So as a starting point, why don't you talk a little bit about yourself and CIA so people know what exactly it is that you do?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I come from a background of business development and sales, was in healthcare for 12 years, joined Cornerstone International Alliance back in 2020, right before COVID hit. And, it's funny because I started in January. By March, we were all remote, and, I didn't know what a normal M&A year looked like until, a couple of years later. But, I remember not seeing any of our members in person for the first 2 years I worked here. And so once we got to that first in-person conference, it was a breath of fresh air, amazing, and just great to see what you can do at a conference where we're all together in person. Cornerstone International Alliance was really founded on, the abundance mindset of we're all stronger together than we are individually. We help each other out. There's plenty of business out there for all of our firms to be successful and not compete with each other. And so what we do is we hopefully provide, value to our members, not only to help them do what they do, but hopefully kind of take their firm to the next level. And so there are a lot of challenges that face an M&A firm, and we really looked at that and be like, well, how can we solve for these? And I think the biggest thing that we solve is the issue of isolation. When you are a firm in your market, head down, doing your deals and, working with your clients. And that's what we're here to do, right? But, if you don't have that group around you, that network, that network of your peers that can, be there at the drop of a hat when you need them, that can be a lonely place. And so we really wanted to solve for that, where we bring in firms to this network that are quality. They're all vetted. They're all go through a process to make sure that, they're quality firms, quality people. And, if you have an issue, a question, a need for some sort of help with a deal, or even just how you structure your firm or anything like that, you got a network of your peers at your disposal. And so it's really, that mindset that, we can all help each other out and still be successful individually and together.
Nick, can you talk a little bit about geography? I mean, you're across the globe. Maybe not that far. You're north, almost at the Canadian border. We're in Canada, close to Toronto. Talk a little bit about where the members are located, because I think that's kind of a beautiful thing too, and how we're spread out. And yeah, M&A is pretty similar in terms of how we do things.
Right. It is similar, and it is different. Obviously based on your culture, location, your geography, or just how things are done in your area, obviously poses its own unique challenges. But altogether, M&A, helping business owners sell their companies, helping them grow through acquisition and valuing businesses, is pretty similar. And so within our network, we have 32 firms on 5 different continents, I should say now. And it is, we kind of laid our foundation here in North America, where we have a good presence in the United States and in Canada. We're looking to grow our international footprint outside of, North America into Europe, Pacific Asia, South America, Central America, areas like that. And so, it really helps to get different perspectives on how M&A works in these different areas. Plus, it's also really, really helpful if you're looking at a cross-border deal, like you're in Canada and I'm here in Wisconsin, and you have maybe your buyer's a U.S.-based buyer, and you're not in this country, where I can be of help to you, kind of navigate those waters and make sure of a clean and easy process. And so, really, it's boots on the ground. It's best practice sharing. It's helping each other out. It's learning about other areas, because if we do something this way and our group in Paris, France does it another way, that might work in the United States and in Canada, and maybe we want to adopt that. And really, it's the beauty of this group is we're all sharing what we do. We're not saying, hey Jim, you have to do it my way because I'm smarter than you, I know how to do it. It's like, this is what we do. You listen, you're consuming information, and be like, I'm going to take bits and pieces from everywhere I think is going to benefit my firm, put it into practice, and we're going to be much better for it.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of it, right? I mean, there's a couple of things that I've learned since joining the association and going to those in-person meetings too, which I really like. M&A is very similar across the globe, right? Like, I think it is relationship centric. It's
Yeah.
about playing matchmaker, buyer and seller. It's about having a good formula and process to follow and good team members. Um, and there's a lot of best practices that are relevant across the globe, right? There's
Mhm.
also some nuances, right? In terms of, hey, what are the multiples you're seeing in your country versus our country? Where's the appetite of buyers coming from in this sort of thing? And it has created business for members, right?
Mhm.
Between one another. And I'm just wondering if you can maybe share a little bit about what you've seen between members and how they've worked closely together. And also, if you think about the global reach in terms of finding buyers, say I'm in Toronto, I can now access buyers, across the network. What does that look like in practical terms?
Yeah, let me hit on that buyers question first, just where you can access these buyers. So you join Cornerstone International Alliance as a member firm. You immediately have a worldwide global reach of buyers at your disposal. And whether you find a buyer in another country or not, at least for your client and their peace of mind, you kind of leave no stone left unturned in that regard, because there are such a big pool of buyers out there, and to find the right one is really what we're looking to do at the structure that makes most sense for our clients. And if you have people, firms, different areas, they can like, if you think, hey, I think this could be a play in this country, you just pick up the phone, call our member there, and they will literally introduce you to a handful of buyers that they've worked with, they have experience with, and they would say would be a good fit, or at least worth a conversation on the phone to talk about any synergies there. We put out a newsletter every month that has all of our active deals on it, and we send that out to a huge pool of buyers. And you're still running your process, Jim, at Portage. You have your buyers list, you have your process, but we're just enhancing that reach by adding on this newsletter, externally as well as internally, because a lot of times, someone might see your deal and say, Jim, I got a buyer for you. You should really reach out to this person. And and they may not be on your list. And you're like, thank you for connecting me with this buyer. I didn't, I would love to reach out to them. And then you do so, and then you get them in your process. And that happens very often within the group. And so making sure that you feel comfortable as an M&A advisor, because I've heard a lot of times, like, we went out to 50, 100 buyers, and we just haven't found the right one yet. We only got a couple of IOIs, and where else can we go? Well, dig into the network and the pool of buyers that this group has access to, and you're going to probably add on a couple of really quality buyers to that engagement that might be the right fit for your client. And so it's always a great way to just know that you're going to reach a lot of potential buyers in a short period of time. And so it's been great. But kind of back to your first question about collaboration, how we all work together, and it happens in many different forms. The simplest one is, I got a question. We type it in our Teams chat, and you'll get 5 answers right away. We do monthly meetings. We just did one with our advisors the other day, and we call it, we just shared our deals. We talk about our deals and we shared them. And I made over 7 or 8 introductions amongst our members that are going to help, that M&A advisor leading that deal, and it'll make their lives a lot easier. There was one in an industry that I connected them with that we had an industry expert in, and that person gave this other firm all the insight and information into this industry. And it really helped them it really helped them write a quality sim, made their lives easier. They didn't have to go and do all the research on this industry because this one member shared, a sim and all their insights into this industry. So it made their lives a lot easier in creating these marketing materials and then also connecting with the right buyers. And so it's just, and then it's always, hey, I'm going to pick up a phone. I'm going to give you a call. I got a question about, this industry, or, what multiples are you seeing? Or I see you closed a deal in this space. How did that go? What road bumps did you come across? Or, how did you handle this situation? There's no reason for us to reinvent the wheel and go through the same problems that others have gone through if we can avoid it by just picking up the phone and having a conversation. And then, like you mentioned before, one of the best couple of days every year is when we get together in person and we just talk about a lot of different things. We're not all always in the conference room talking about business. We're out, having a good dinner, going out and getting drinks, playing pickleball. That's been a big one for our group the last couple of conferences, and just creating, friendships and trust and building relationships and rapport with each other that are going to lead to us working together down the road. And, you're going to work with people you trust and feel confident in. And, that's what this group is all about.
Yeah, and I think you touch on a couple of key things. One is for the business owners of these firms, they're able to connect and they don't feel as isolated. There's tools that they can leverage, industry, information, talk to other practitioners. It's powerful. I also see individuals at our firm, right, connecting with other individuals at other M&A firms on the marketing side, on the associate side. And so there's best practices being shared at all levels in the organization. It's not just at the most senior level. And I think for us, it's been really beneficial. So we have a feel for, hey, how someone in Texas is marketing, as an example, what they're finding to be very effective versus someone in France versus Australia versus Canada. And oftentimes, trends happen in certain regions before other regions. You can leverage them. AI is another topic where we're all talking about this and figuring out how we create efficiency. It becomes very powerful when you're looking at kind of the best firms in the lower middle market and you're leveraging the best of the best. And everyone just kind of wins together is how I look at that.
Absolutely. And kind of back to just we're all stronger together. And, if you're pitching a client, like I said, individually, we look like the firm that we are, which is great. But if you can say, I got partners, in 5 different continents, 34 other firms, 32 other firms, you are, and we have industry experts in your industry, Mr. and Mrs. Business Owner, you're going to look a lot more favorable as for your firm leveraging this alliance and being able to compete with the bigger investment banks that you might be, especially as you go into bigger deals, more complex deals, that you are now a true option and player in those kind of deals. And I've heard a lot of success stories about, hey, I said we were part of this international alliance, and I think we really got this deal because we have this global footprint. I know one of our European firms is now able to do deals in another couple of countries because they leveraged and they pitched and they told them about Cornerstone International Alliance, and that really helped them out because they have capabilities just beyond their own borders now. And so it's really impactful, not only to just collaborate with each other, but the optics and the perspective of it are, I can pick up the phone and I got people all over the world that are going to help me out if I need it. I'm going to better serve you as my client, and you're going to benefit from that.
So related to this is really the building of a data-driven repository. And it's something that, is happening at CIA. If you think about the benefit for firms like myself at Portage, our sellers, our clients, can you talk a little bit about this database, the information that's being collected, how it's being maintained, and how people are leveraging this targeted deal-making data and information?
Yeah, like I mentioned previously, like you look at enlisting the help of other firms, and a lot of times one of the main reasons is they have an industry expertise. Like we want to know who closed deals in certain industries, so we come up with a lot of different ways in which we do that. And this database of closed deals that we have that you're referencing really allows anybody in our group to go in, log in, and look at deals that were closed. They can search by firm, location, industry, all those sorts of things, and they can find a couple of deals in the same industry, or maybe it's by buyer name. Maybe we want to find a really good buyer. Well, we have, 5 deals within CI, that sold to this buyer. Like I want to make sure we include them, and so that database is really a way to just go and see who's doing what. We dive into the details of the deal, looking at multiples and enterprise value and structure and you know um, EBITDA and all those sorts of things that if we're all thirsting for that type of data out in the general public, which is just not there. So to have a network of 32 plus firms feeding really high quality lower middle market deals into this database is going to be huge when you're doing your research and analysis, because you got this database that's really not available to anybody else but our members. And so, we did 165 deals last year, equating to just under $2 billion in enterprise value. Over the
Wow.
last 4 years, it's been over 5.5 billion in enterprise value. Think about all those deals in this database. Like you can draw a lot of really good conclusions, and better serve your clients by just the research that we've created internally. Another way we do that is, we have all of our advisors fill out a profile. They create their industry expertise, industry experience. So you can go into our member portal, Jim, and look up, I don't know, construction, and find out all the advisors in our alliance that have done and completed construction deals. Now you know that you can go to them and ask questions and get help and insights into that industry, and you can include them on your pitch deck, where you can access them and have them, be a part of a deal, or just be a resource for you when you're pitching a client. So it's a lot of really good opportunities to do that. And then, yeah, we're doing that in our meetings. We're talking about deals. We're sharing information about the opportunities we have. And we're going to enlist the help of those people who can help, who have had experience, and who can share knowledge that are going to benefit the firm that's dealing with that industry.
Beautiful. It's more powerful than one can even realize, right? And with the power of AI, when you have the data, it's just going to really expedite the process. And I think for us too, having up to date data signals that can tell us what's hot, what business are trading for, who good buyers are, and who's buying what, super helpful. I
Mhm.
guess in closing, I wanted you to really touch on business owners and what they need to think about when preparing for a sale, and how CIA might be a good tool for them. Just Mr. or Mrs. Business owner who's thinking about selling.
Yeah. It's a great question. I think, every business owner needs to think about that eventual exit. It's going to happen at some point. The sooner the better, the more runway you give yourself to mentally prepare, but also to get your business prepared to sell. Because the last thing you want is, I'm ready to sell, I need to sell, and my company is not worth what I need it to be worth for me to live my lifestyle post selling. And so really putting the work in early, to make sure that happens. And we always, as M&A advisory firms, one thing that we do is, we want to help you understand the value of your business. I think it's a great first step to be like, okay, if I were to sell today, what would my company be worth? Well,
Hmm.
get a valuation, an estimate of value, fair market analysis, whatever the term you want to use, and understand what that number is. And if that number is not what you need it to be, then what are you going to do next? And so we got a really good network and people that we can help business owners, get to the point of value enhancement type of work to get there. And then once they're ready, we'll take them to market and sell. But then once you get to that point and you're ready to sell, going at it alone, is also a lonely place. It
Hmm.
is a place that, you are at a big disadvantage as a business owner. I just recently had on my podcast, the M&A Mastermind podcast, for my 100th episode, was Vern Harnish of Scaling Up. They help business owners scale up their practice to get the premium value when they are ready to sell. And, he talks about all the time, if you're getting on one-on-one, negotiating setting with a buyer who's doing that for a living, they've sold, 1,000 businesses. You've never, or bought 1,000 businesses. You've never sold one. Who's got the advantage there? And so to make sure that you have an M&A advisor who is experienced in helping business owners sell companies is very important. We always say we pay for ourselves, 10x over just by being, managing the deal, leading the deal. Because if you're going to do it on your own, guess what? You still have to run your business too. So that's basically 2 full-time jobs. And, you're not going to do either one of them very well. And so with all that being said, when you're looking for a quality M&A advisory firm, and I do this all the time, bringing firms into our group because we want quality as well. You're looking at their track record, their experience. How many deals have they done? How long have they been doing M&A? What does their background look like? What does their fee structure look like? Are they going to tell you what you want to hear or what you need to hear? Are they upfront? Are they talking about, you and understanding you as a business owner and what you're going through instead of, hey, I'm going to, puff my chest out and pound it and tell you how great I am. And I'm going to promise you this amazing, price. And, I think, we would always recommend, I think most of our firms in our group would say, go check out, a couple other firms and see what they say. And if you see one that's got this outlier really high number on the table, probably too good to be true. And I think you guys are like this, Jim, where, you're going to tell them what they need to hear. You're going to give them a realistic expectation. You're going to set the benchmark and you're going to hit that benchmark. And a lot of times you're going to exceed that, but you're not going to want to set false expectations and always come up short. You want to set the bar at a fair level and then do the work, put the work in and exceed those expectations. And so making sure that you're comfortable, you get a good feel rapport. I was just talking on another show of ours, our members, Craig Castelli's got the Close podcast. And we talked about just talent acquisition, what really it takes to be a good M&A advisor. The biggest thing, in my opinion, is you got to be able to, be a good networker, a people person, have that rapport, build that trust early. And if you don't get a good vibe as a business owner from an M&A advisor, trust your gut, because you gotta be with them for the next 6, 9, 12 months. And you're basically married to them for that period of time. And so, as an M&A advisor, I would say definitely dive into the emotional side of the sale. Understand that this is going to be a lot of ups and downs, as you all know, but really take the time to understand your client on a personal level. It's not all about the business; it's about the person as well. We do business with people, and so really showcase yourself in that pitch that you really care about them and what they're going through and how you can help them. I think that'll help you go a long way. But make sure that they are experienced, and they even experience in their industry is important. But for firms in our group, we have a deep bench of experience that we can leverage. And so to have someone in a group like this who can do that, plus themselves have a bunch of experience, you're going to be better for it. I think there's just a lot of ways in which you can go and evaluate different M&A firms, but to show that they're proud of what they do. They are focused on their craft and being better in a group like this where there's continuous learning happening. I think something that, shows that they're really vested into their M&A work is important as well.
Yeah. And I think, there's a couple of things when I think about Cornerstone is really, there's a vetting process. So to be a part of the alliance, there's a lot, you mentioned, certain amount of deals, size of deals, you fit into lower middle market, you're following best practices. I think anyone who's looking for an advisor, if you go to the site, you're going to find qualified, vetted people versus someone off the street who may have started yesterday. That's really important. And then also know that they've got a really good pool of other experts who are going to support them through the process. It's a very collaborative group. You've got access to data, lots of intel, They're growth minded, as you said. They're always trying to better their skills, which I think is important. And you know what you're getting at the end of the day, and that's the beauty of it. I know you also do a lot of podcasts. You mentioned Vern Harnish. If people want to learn more about CIA and listen to some of your key podcasts, where can they find you?
Yeah, so our website is cornerstoneia.com. We got all information about our great firms, all the great work that they do, the clients that we serve, and our podcast is on that website. Go to the podcast page, or it's cornerstoneia.com/podcast. My show is called the M&A Mastermind Podcast. It's a weekly show where we really dive in deep into one specific topic and help our listeners understand, this one topic, how they can hone their craft and be better. I know you've been on it, I think, twice now, Jim, and you've been a great guest of mine. Like I said, we just celebrated our 100th episode, which is amazing. I'm really thankful for all of our listeners and all of our guests. And we're really trying to, and I think you're doing the same, Jim, is really helping provide a resource for M&A advisors and business owners to help understand the industry and how they can be the best versions of themselves, not only for their firm, but also for their clients. And so it's been a blast. It's been an amazing journey. I'm excited to dive into the next 100 episodes, and I'm really excited to see where your podcast is going as well, because you're doing great work there as well. And it's been a great ride, and looking forward to what's in the future.
Beautiful. Nick, I could go on for hours, but I say we leave it there. Thank you so much for joining, and really appreciate your insight.
Thanks, Jim.
Please remember to like or subscribe to keep this podcast handy, and we'll see you next time.